So CIG just released the June monthly report for 2026, and after reading through the whole thing, I actually came away with a different impression than I expected. Going into this report, I think we all had the same question in the back of our minds after CIG announced that they're slowing down new feature development to focus on fixing the game. Would this report actually reflect that, or would it just be another month of new ships, new armor, and more feature creep, while the core experience continues to struggle? And honestly, I think the answer is somewhere in the middle, but leaning more towards the direction they promised, which is a good thing. This isn't a report where every team suddenly stopped what they were doing to squash bugs. That's simply not how a studio that size operates. The artists are still building ships, the animation team is still creating creatures, and concept artists are still designing future content. But when you start looking at the engineering teams, gameplay systems, online technology, mission design, and AI, there's a very noticeable pattern. Instead of talking about huge new gameplay systems, they're spending a lot of time fixing, polishing, rebuilding, and supporting what's already there. So with that said, let's get into the report. So let's start with AI. This month AI work wasn't about introducing some revolutionary new NPC system. Instead, the team spent a surprising amount of time cleaning things up. They fixed super heavy NPCs using miniguns incorrectly, addressed human AI shooting at enemies they couldn't even see, and continued improving flight AI with smarter fleeing, better counter-chasing behavior, and more natural combat movement. Those aren't flashy additions, but they're exactly the kind of improvements players actually notice when they're in the middle of a fight. The Apex Valakar also received a lot of attention. It now has improved attack behavior, new laser and EMP attacks, better sound detection, smarter attack switching, and proper area constraints, so its encounters should feel much more controlled. Meanwhile, the Yormandi received fixes to prevent it from getting stuck during reactions, which should make those encounters smoother as well. Animation was relatively straightforward this month. The team expanded the Apex Valakar's animation set while already working the next wave of creatures, and they also continued work on Battaglia, both for in-person interactions and communication calls. Speaking of Battaglia, you'll notice that name appears several times throughout this report. CIG is clearly investing quite a lot into making these missions feel more cinematic and narrative-driven, with multiple departments working together on them simultaneously. Character Art continued producing new content. They're working on another armor set, new mission rewards, Ninetale updates, Starware support, and future cosmetic items, while the concept artists continue exploring new combat armor. Nothing particularly surprising there. The ship teams, however, had a lot more to share. The Gatak Railing and the Teely are now complete and released, allowing the UK team to move on to other projects. Development also resumed on another Grey Cat vehicle that had been put on hold last year. The Liberator continues making solid progress, and what's interesting here is that CIG says they're reusing components developed for the Asgard and Paladin. That might not sound exciting at first, but it's actually a really positive sign. Rather than building every single ship completely from scratch, they're starting to take advantage of modular development. Reusing existing assets means faster production, greater consistency, and that will allow them to ship the ships faster. Meanwhile, more developers have moved onto the RSI Galaxy, meaning work across the ship is continuing to ramp up. We also learned that 2 new ground vehicle variants are progressing quickly, while 4 completely unannounced ships are also somewhere in development. One of those is apparently a new fighter that has already passed white box and entered gray box refinement, targeting November. There's also a new Geon Generalist ship entering pre-production, another ship approaching its LOD-0 milestone with detailed hull work, and yet another project preparing complex motion capture after completing gray box review. There's a lot of ship work going on here, but I wanted to point out that the generalist ship, the only generalist ship that we have in the game right now, is the Clipper, which is what I own right now and is my favorite ship in the game. So hearing that they're working on a Geon generalist ship is actually pretty exciting. Let's see what they're actually going to do with it. Now finally, the North American ship team continues pushing the Kraken towards gray box, benefiting from all the Drake assets created for the Ironclad. If you've been waiting for some of these larger ships, it's definitely nice seeing consistent progress month after month with them. Hopefully though that they put them in the BTU, as I've been saying for so long, before they release them to avoid another Ironclad situation. Now let's talk about what I think is probably the most interesting part of this entire report, the core gameplay section. This section feels very different compared to a report from a year ago. Instead of introducing a dozen entirely new mechanics, most of the work here is about making existing systems actually function properly. The team spent time fixing hangars, freight elevators, quantum travel, star map routing, vehicle insurance problems, and false destruction states. These are all issues that players run into almost every single session. The super heavy armor also received improvements, including proper backpack-fed ammunition, manual loading, automatic magazine ejection, and several quality of life fixes. But we're not getting this armor in 4.9, it has been delayed to 4.10. Now, melee combat gained buttstock strikes, while tractor beams now preview object placement much more accurately. But the biggest system here has to be item recovery. CIG completed a basic version of individual item claiming, started building the full version, added support for ship paints, fixed claim issues, improved timers, and even made ships destroyed inside hangars free to reclaim. This is exactly the kind of quality of life work players have been asking for. But we'll have to wait and see about implementation because we've been hearing about a lot of fixes, but where are they? Well, they're being developed, but we have to wait and see when they actually come into the game. Now, with Starware also continues evolving with validation tools, improved UI, inventory improvements, and clearer indicators showing what equipment is actually space-worthy. Meanwhile, under the hood, Starchitect continues making procedural locations smarter, allowing things like loot, missions, harvestables, freight elevators, and security system to scale much more naturally. Navigation points were also rewritten so locations continue functioning properly even after parts of the world stream out. That may sound incredibly technical, but it's one of those invisible improvements that can make the universe feel much more reliable. The command module received another huge wave of fixes covering hangars, ATC, damage routing, collisions, cameras, atmosphere transitions, and much more. One of the most systems or things that they added to the game that had so many issues was the command module, so it does need a lot of fixing, and it's good to hear that they're on top of it. Ahead of future tech preview builds, CIG also focused on fixing instancing problems involving ownership, transfers, and parties unexpectedly getting separated. Again, not glamorous work, but probably some of the most important work in this entire report. Mission tools also continued improving, making Battaglia missions easier to build while allowing designers to create one-time communication calls and deliver missions directly into specific instances. On top of all that, social and organization chat is being rebuilt with customizable tabs, location-based channels, and the entry foundations for a completely redesigned friend application. Creature development remains focused on the Valakar again. The Apex Sand variant continues being refined specifically to improve ship-based combat encounters. So that means that the Apex Sandworm is going to hit the ships like we saw in the trailer, which is pretty cool. Now, right now, they're exploring silhouettes, combat readability, gameplay archetypes, and overall visual direction. It's still early days, but it's nice seeing this creature team actually working on it. The economy as well had a smaller update this month. Using data gathered from Alpha 4.8, they're adjusting repair and reclaim pricing to make those systems feel more reasonable and intuitive. Again, another example of refinement instead of massive new gameplay systems, but it is worth mentioning. Mission design also continues polishing Siege of Orison while working around technical limitations. Battaglia missions received further planning and polish, and after the recent armor rebalance, the team has already started adjusting mission difficulty to better match the new combat experience. Narrative is supporting all of this by preparing dialogue, temporary voice lines, item descriptions, ship names, armor descriptions, and future performance capture. Now let's move over to online technology because this is probably where the biggest shift in priorities become obvious. This is also the section that sounds the most confusing if you don't already work in software or game development, so let me translate it into plain English. When CIG says online technology, they're basically talking about the invisible systems that keep the game running behind the scenes. The backend servers, databases, crash reporting, internal development tools, support tools, account and mission systems, and the infrastructure that helps the game stay stable when lots of players are online at once, which was one of the biggest problems in Alpha 4.8. So this section is not about new gameplay, it's about the plumbing of the game. And one of the biggest things mentioned here is Hex. Hex appears to be one of CIG's internal live operations tools. In simple terms, think of it like a control panel or dashboard that developers, support staff, and live service teams use to inspect problems, look up player issues, manage data, and troubleshoot the game without having to dig through raw backend systems manually. The report says the Live Tools team is redesigning Hex into version 4. That usually means the tool is being rebuilt or modernized so it can do more, work faster, and or be easier for the staff to use. It doesn't mean players will directly see Hex in the game, but it can absolutely affect how quickly CIG can diagnose and fix problems. Support teams also gain much better player investigation tools, which means when something goes wrong, they can more easily figure out what happened. Crash reporting now gathers significantly more useful information, which is important because if the game crashes, CIG needs detailed logs to understand why. Backend reliability continues improving, automation has been added for specific Intel processor crashes, and multiple internal systems received security and stability updates. Online services fixed more than 30 bugs while focusing heavily on player-facing stability. Contract generation is undergoing optimization. Item recovery continues moving forward, and one of the biggest milestones in the report was the completion of global database sharding. That sounds complicated, but here's the simple version. A database is where the game stores a lot of important information, like player data, inventory missions, and other persistent systems. If that database gets too large or too overloaded, it can slow things down or become harder to manage. Sharding means splitting that giant database into smaller pieces so the system can handle more data and more players more efficiently. So when CIG says global database sharding is complete, this is a big back-end milestone. Players may never directly notice it in a flashy way, but it can help the game scale better, reduce bottlenecks, and support a more stable, persistent universe. Crafting and refining systems are also continuing their deeper design work behind the scenes. So if you were wondering why this section matters, the answer is simple. This is the stuff that makes the rest of the game possible. You can have the best ships, missions, and combat systems in the world, but if the back-end is unstable, the whole experience falls apart, which is exactly what they have said and concluded from the Star Citizen Live that they have done recently. Now finally, research and development focus on graphics technology. Gas clouds now feature improved lighting, recoloring, and performance. Ground fog has returned with a much more advanced system supporting local density, height variations, and improved shadows, as well as better lighting interactions. Atmospheric rendering also received optimization work, while several rendering issues were fixed. Meanwhile, VFX wrapped up work on the Raylan and Teely before shifting attention towards Siege of Orison, upcoming weapons, and future vehicles. So, what do you guys think? Are you excited about any of the features they're talking about? Or does it feel like they're saying a lot without actually implementing much because of the current state of the game? Or do you think this is actually the start of them improving things, fixing the game, and polishing what's already there? Right now, we just have to wait and see because we haven't really seen the results in-game yet. They've said that 4.9 is supposed to focus heavily on bug fixing and stability, but the only way we're really going to know if that's true or not is by waiting to see once the patch goes live. But what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below what do you think about this, and with that said, thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe. It helps me out a lot. I'll see you guys in the